Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone's having a great night. Thank you for coming. My name is Jim Alcove. I work in the operating systems group at Microsoft, specifically on the engineering team that is responsible for enterprise and security in Windows. I'm really excited to be here today to talk to you about Windows 10 for the enterprise, something we've been working on for quite a long time now. This journey really started for us about a year and a half ago as we started meeting with customers like yourselves and really trying to understand what Windows 10 was going to be about for the enterprise. And so what I'd like to do is take you through where we've landed, and we've come a long way, and we still got some distance to go before we launch this thing, but I think we're super excited about how it's landing. To set a little bit of context, I think we're all living in a thriving digital economy. That economy has a lot of benefits, but it also has a lot of challenges. You know, all of us are being challenged to adopt new technologies faster than ever, to be more responsive to the needs of our user base. The cybersecurity threat landscape is evolving at an alarming rate. We're seeing data breaches day after day, and they seem to be getting more severe. And so the ever-present need to secure our enterprises is more clear than ever. And then on top of that, we're all doing this. If you were in the keynote this morning, you heard Satya say this as well, which is we're all under the same pressure to be significantly more efficient with the resources that we're using. So all of these challenges together, but under pressure to be more efficient with resources than we've ever been. So with Windows 10, we're really aiming to help you take those challenges on head on. When we started this journey, I said we started meeting with customers over a year and a half ago to talk about Windows in the enterprise and how our customers use our products today. And really a lot of the feedback from customers like yourselves came into sort of a few broad categories, and these have really become the pillars for the Windows 10 release from an enterprise perspective. The first one is be more productive. And you heard, if you were in the keynote this morning, you heard Joe Belfiore talk a lot about a lot of the work that we're doing to make Windows 10 feel familiar and instantly productive for our users. You saw a lot of the great demos, user experience, bringing back the start menu, et cetera. I'm not going to go too deeply into this particular pillar in this. There are more talks at Ignite about this, but I think we've talked a lot about the user experience. I really want to focus on sort of the three remaining pillars of our enterprise value proposition. The second one is innovative devices for your business, and you saw a little glimpse of this with the HoloLens stuff and some of the innovation we're doing around Surface Hub. Protection against modern security threats. Security is a core tenet of Windows 10, especially in the enterprise, but more broadly with consumers as well. Again, I will say that there's never been a time where securing your operating system has been more important. And then finally, manage for continuous innovation. We've moved from a cycle of long OS upgrade cycles to a time where users are expecting the functionality of their devices to continue to improve on a regular basis. They're expecting the functionality of their applications to update on a continuous basis. The sort of BYOD and mobile device phenomenon has really changed the set of user expectations as it relates to the enterprise, and I think all of you are probably experiencing that as you're managing your enterprise devices today, whether they be existing organizationally owned devices or their BYOD devices that are coming into your enterprise from consumers. And as I said, security is sort of one of the top priorities for us in Windows 10. So I'd like to start talking to you about the security investments that we're making in Windows 10. It's really hard to overstate the challenges that we face in the security landscape, and we really need new technologies to help us catch up with the attackers and get ahead of them. And we believe in the context of Windows 10, we're making a significant step forward in that area. Our security investments in Windows 10 really fit into these three large buckets. The first ones are identity protection. And as a security person, I would tell you that the most significant challenge that we face in IT security today is protecting user identity. Protecting against phishing attacks, credential theft, and protecting the use of those credentials once they're stolen. So things like pass the hash and lateral movement within advanced persistent threats. We're making a bunch of investments in the context of Windows 10 to help with those things. Information protection. All of us, data is growing and growing exponentially. You heard Gurdeep talk about this morning, talk about how much the total world's data is exploding, and in the enterprise, managing all of that data, securing all that data, making sure you meet your compliance requirements is one of the significant challenges that we all face. And so in the context of Windows 10, we're building information protection directly into the platform in a way that both we believe is the most secure, usable, and enables you to leverage it with your existing suite of applications. Many IT organizations have thousands or tens of thousands of applications that none of us can afford to upgrade in order to take advantage of these new capabilities. And our approach to enterprise data protection in Windows 10 is to enable you to take advantage of these features without a heavy lift and rewriting all of your applications. And then finally, device security. The reality of the previous world of the network is the boundary, and we can start securing things by having a strong perimeter in the enterprise is really a thing of the past. Security perimeters really move to the client and to the cloud. And so we need to have our security capability, our controls, our infrastructure move with that. And so we're making a lot of investment in the context of Windows 10 around very robust device protection, and I want to talk to you in detail about the work that we're doing in that space. And then there are a number of talks going on and work that's going on in Microsoft to talk about the work we're doing in Azure in the cloud with Azure Active Directory, helping with identity, but also security efforts in the Microsoft cloud. So, as I said, identity protection clearly one of the most significant challenges that we have facing us today. And in Windows 10, we really have three key investments that we're making in this space. The first, which is Microsoft Passport. And so when we think about phishing attacks, the first thing we need to do is get to a phish-proof credential, something that the user can't give up because they don't know what it is. And that thing, we believe, is a strong cryptographic credential. And that thing, in addition to being non-phishable, it also needs to be bound to hardware. And so the investments that we're making in the context of Windows 10 address both of these attributes. But we've had smart cards for a long time, and they sort of meet that requirement of, you can't be phished and it's bound to hardware. The challenge with that is very difficult for us to deploy and manage those. There's the expense of those cards, and the user experience of them is typically quite bad. So we're also introducing with Windows 10 Windows Hello, which is leveraging biometric authentication to simplify the authentication process for the user so that the thing that we use to gate the credential access to that strong cryptographic credential is actually a biometric rather than a PIN number, which has been historically the thing that's been associated with smart cards. And then finally, getting at the need to secure sensitive subsystems in the operating system from attack. And in particular, the technical subsystem we call the Local Security Authority in Windows is the part of the Windows operating system that manages credentials. So in Windows 10, for the first time, we're shipping an always-on client hypervisor in the Enterprise edition of Windows that will allow us to have a secure execution environment where we can protect credentials that are therefore can't be compromised in the event of the compromise of the Windows kernel. These are the real three sort of core pillar investments that we're making to improve security around identity. So I'd like to take you through sort of a couple of additional pieces of detail on this. The first is the work that we're doing around Microsoft Passport. There's really two models. As I said, we're moving to a strong cryptographic credential, so you can imagine that, a smart card, you have a cryptographic public-private key pair, and if you've deployed smart cards today, you have an existing PKI. All of the work we're doing in Microsoft Passport will be completely compatible with the existing PKI infrastructure that you've already deployed. That said, we also know that it's, for some enterprises, the activation energy required to build out a PKI and enable you to take advantage of those kind of credentials has been more than people have been able to take on. And so with Windows 10, we're also introducing a new mode for Microsoft Passport that we call Key Trust. And the idea is that we don't need certificates, we don't need PKI. We simply we provision the individual unique keys to the TPM of each individual device, and then we trust the public portion of those keys in Azure Active Directory or Azure Active Directory, and that allows you to have a much more simple deployment. These credentials are provisioned at the time that the user enrolls that Azure Active Directory account or Active Directory account on that particular Windows 10 device, and then there's an update to Active Directory and Azure Active Directory that'll trust the keys on the back end. So we support both models, but the idea being, if you have existing PKI, you're a large organization, you've already spent the money to deploy smart cards, the transition to Microsoft Passport is going to be a straightforward one for you. If you haven't, and you're looking for a lighter way to get there, the Key Trust model in Microsoft Passport might be something you should really take a look at. And finally, in all these cases, the private portion of these credentials is bound to the TPM in the device that in question. So really, for multi-factor, we're replacing your smart card with a broken phone, with your phone. And so, the idea is you may not have your smart card, but you're always going to have your phone with you. And so you can also use your laptop or desktop as the credential. So you can think of it as kind of 1.5 factor, where you've got a key pair provision to that particular device, and you can sign into it with a biometric. But if you have requirements where you really need a physical second device, we're enabling the phone to remotely authenticate to the laptop or desktop, and you get your challenge for your biometric or your PIN on your device. So this is just a quick view of the provisioning process for the key trust model. So the idea is we authenticate the user, we have provisioned a key, and then that particular public key is actually then used to bootstrap trust with the service rather than a certificate. Finally, I've talked a little bit about biometrics, but I do want to highlight that while we believe that biometrics is the future, we're going to support enterprise-grade biometrics for fingerprint, iris, and face. We think that the ease of use and the security is better. There are a lot of scenarios where PIN will work just fine. It's compatible with existing devices. It's a thing that users are familiar with, so we're going to continue to support that as part of Microsoft Passport as well. So with that, I'd like to bring Peter up to take you through some demos of Microsoft Passport and Windows Hello.
Oh, wow. When you said a broken phone, you meant a broken phone. Hello, everybody. I'm Peter Dawood. I'm a PM in the Enterprise and Security org. And I was one of the PMs who was lucky enough to work on Windows Hello. The way I normally start this is I just ask the crowd, how many of you enjoy those really lovely, complicated passwords that we get in Enterprise these days? Okay, good. So it's the right crowd. So most of you understand that they're annoying, they're very schleppy. We always sit there and we're like, what's my password today? And every 4 months we have to reinvent a new sequence of characters that we struggle for a while. So what Windows Hello is trying to do is not only provide the benefits and convenience of biometrics, but also bring a truly new security model to what we do with biometrics. Previously, we had always supported biometrics in Windows 7, 8, 8.1, and that was always fingerprint. Today, we're happy, and I think in January we announced during WinHack that we're bringing new biometric modalities to Windows. And as Jim said, we're actually bringing facial recognition and iris recognition, as well as bringing back fingerprint, but this time backing it with our stronger authentication through Microsoft Passport. So if most of you watched the keynote this morning, I hope? Most? Yay. Okay, so one of the things that you would have seen in the keynote is Joe B actually showed a demonstration of Face Unlock. So I'm happy to have the exact same device now. I don't have Joe, so I had to use my face, so you're going to just have to deal with my pretty one for today. What we're trying to do with Windows Hello, specifically with Face and Iris, is make it as personal and as engaging to users as possible. And one of the things we did is created a new character that sits on the lock screen when the camera is engaged. This gives the user an indication that the camera is on, it's looking at them, but it also allows for some feedback. So if the user is too far away, we'll tell the user they're too far away. If they're too close, this gives us an opportunity in a very natural way to engage the user. And then if the user so happens to step in front of the device and they get recognized, when they get recognized and the screen gets turned off, you get to see this really cool winky face animation. I'll step away and come back again just to show it to you. So when the user gets recognized, we kind of welcome them in, they kind of see it. If you were watching the keynote, you would have noticed that in this situation, when Joe B showed it, the device automatically unlocked. I have the device configured right now so that a user gesture is required to unlock it to provide me with a bit more privacy, because I have no idea what's underneath my lock screen. So let's find out together. So it smiles, we swipe up, and the PC has crashed. Let's be patient. Let's be patient. We know how to solve this. We've kind of solved it before. Right. So now we're locked into the PC. I'm I'm not going to tempt fate and lock it and try to unlock it again. We'll show you other demos just now. So one of the things that we're bringing with biometrics is this ease of use. I have a fingerprint sensor on the device. I could have used that as well. And the modalities are really just dependent on the device and depending on how the user wants to engage. What's really important here is that we're no longer doing password stuffing. When I was signing in, a strong auth operation was occurring to verify that my biometric was present and that the key is available on the device that's allowing me to unlock the device. This operation can also happen to allow me to authenticate to services on the back end using Microsoft Passport. So not only will users in enterprise be able to use this to access applications, they can also sign in and authenticate to AD or Azure AD as well. So it allows the users to be able to access any of their corporate resources using a biometric method. So right now I actually have a little demo app which we have running, which is just a simple app which shows Windows Hello integration with Microsoft Passport. So when I wish to sign into this app, you see all the Microsoft Passport gestures are present. In this case, I have fingerprint, I have face, and I have the traditional PIN. So the user will always have a PIN as a backup. So if something goes wrong, they're on holiday in Greenland, which I learned is the icy one, in Iceland, which I learned is the green one yesterday. So they're in Greenland, it's cold, they're wearing gloves, they can't use their fingerprint, they can still continue using their PIN. Vice versa, if you wanted to use your face, you simply go to the device, you select face as the credential provider. Once it sees you, it greets you. You click OK. The app spends some time thinking because it likes to think a lot, and then it'll eventually sign the user in. Good. So I could do the exact same thing with fingerprints, so that's what I'll show you as well. So I have a touch sensor, which is provided to us by FPC, which is one of the best fingerprint providers and partners that we have with, one of many in the ecosystem that are really delivering cutting-edge, truly impressive fingerprint sensors to devices over the next few years. And the experience is just the same. You touch the sensor, and you're good to go. No more finicking around with swipe sensors or anything like that. Touch sensors truly do elevate the experience for users. So a lot of you must be thinking now, oh, I bet I could hold a picture in front of the device and then we'd be able to spoof it. So let me give you a quick preview of what we're actually doing with this sensor. So on this device, I have an Intel RealSense camera. We're actually leveraging the IR feed that is available. I don't know if it's clear there, but as I come in, you can kind of see. Could we get the lights turned down, please? Just so it's a bit more obvious. So as I come in, you'll notice that one of the benefits of using IR is that my face is equally illuminated whether the lights are on in full-blown lighting conditions or whether it's pitch black around me. What this means is that users get a much more consistent experience regardless of lighting conditions. Visible light face solutions used to have this really annoying problem where if there was too many shadows around, if the light source was casting a shadow across your face, or if you were just too bright, it would cause problems and we wouldn't be able to recognize you. By switching to IR, one of the benefits we get is, of course, we remove this variability of visible light shadows. It becomes more consistent. One of the other perks is that we no longer have the problem of being able to show a picture. Here's a good friend of mine. I never met him personally, but I think him and I would make really good friends. Is when you hold up a device to the screen, because it's just visible light, the IR sensor doesn't pick it up. The same thing would apply if I was holding up a color picture. So no one's going to go grab your picture off the wall, show it to the camera, and unlock it. One of the other capabilities we have around facial recognition is we have an enhanced anti-spoofing mode, which would allow admins to actually turn it on that requires the user to perform an extra step to kind of verify their aliveness and presence if you feel that you need an extra speed bump to the process. Finally, as we've indicated before, that all these biometrics have managed to reach a very similar bar, and we feel that that bar allows them to be deployed within enterprise. In biometrics, we normally use the false accept rate as a good measure of uniqueness, if you wish, and all the different biometrics that we've talked about, fingerprint, face, and iris, have all reached the bar of 1 in 100,000, which is extremely robust and has been deployed in many enterprises around the world regarding fingerprints. And we feel that bringing face and iris to that level, we feel that that makes them all equal in the eyes of enterprise, and we feel that it gives them the potential to be used in enterprise. And we think that the experience that we're providing to users is engaging, it's delightful, it makes Windows more personal, and of course, it solves the problem of having to remember a really complex PIN all the time. If you have any questions, we do have a few sessions running throughout the remainder of this week which highlight Microsoft Passport and highlight Windows Hello. I do invite you to attend those. Other than that, I think I'll pass back to Jim. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. So in addition to, as I said, the first two investments, Microsoft Passport and Windows Flow, I think Peter did a great job of demonstrating how those work. I wanted to talk a little bit deeper level about the work that we're doing around protecting credentials at runtime in the operating system and pass the hash. So I think there's probably a lot of people in the audience familiar with pass the hash. What I wanted to do was just kind of walk through this really quickly for folks who might not be familiar with the details of it. But the idea being that when you today on a Windows machine, you sign into Windows and your credential is resident in memory in the operating system in the kernel and therefore accessible for the operating system to use on your behalf. The challenge with that has been that if your machine were to get compromised, you're, say, an IT pro with administrative access to a set of systems in an enterprise, I can then use your credential or a credential equivalent like an NTLM hash or the keys associated, your curb ticket and keys associated with it, to then access other machines on the enterprise network. And then from there, I can scrape the credentials that might be in memory on that machine, and then this lather, rinse, and repeat. And what happens, this we call in the lateral movement in the advanced persistent threat context, which basically can lead to basically the entire enterprise being compromised, because you can imagine that a normal user logs into a machine that some admin had logged into previously, and therefore the admin credential is still resident in memory. We've done a bunch of work in the context of Windows 8 and 8.1 to try to mitigate these things. You saw some great work that the team has done to reduce the time window in memory in Windows 8.1, that those password equivalents were in memory, but it's not a closed form solution to the problem, and as a security person, I tend to prefer closed form solutions to problems. So intro, Hyper-V Virtual Secure Mode in the context of Windows 10, which is really a closed form solution to the challenge with pass the hash. So what we're doing, as I said at the intro, is we're relocating, we're shipping Hyper-V on the client in Windows 10 Enterprise, and then utilizing some new technology that we've built into Hyper-V as part of Windows 10 to create a secure execution environment that we're calling Virtual Secure Mode, not a final name, but sufficient for this context, where we are going to, instead of having those credentials resident in memory and potentially subject to theft, we're going to run those things outside of the operating system. And so we believe this effectively can put to rest the pass the hash attacks on Windows 10 machines for machines that are set up to run this in the enterprise. So I would encourage all of you, as you're looking at deploying Windows 10 in your enterprise, to make sure that you're buying systems with the hardware requirements to enable this. You need CPUs with virtualization extensions and I/O virtualization extensions to make this possible. You need Secure Boot to be turned on, all of which is part of our sort of base hardware security requirements for Windows 10, but it's something you'll want to look for as you think about making purchasing decisions in Windows 10. I said there were three pillars. We talked about identity protection. I think to move on to information protection. We talked about this has been demoed a couple times at the keynote. What I'd like to do is cover some of the things that haven't been talked about in the keynote, and then I'll bring Yogesh up to take you through a bunch of demonstrations on this. The first is that when we started to build information protection in Windows 10, as I said, we wanted to make sure that we were building something that had a simple user experience that let a user understand where their personal world was and where their business world was, and how data should move or shouldn't move back and forth. And we wanted to give control to you, the IT professionals, to decide when data can cross that boundary, and that give you audit controls when the user decides to let that data cross that boundary, so that you can go back later and audit those actions. And so that's fundamentally what the enterprise data protection capability in Windows 10 is. As I said, we're building this in the platform, which means it's built into the file system, it's built into the networking stack. It sits underneath the application, and the application, so if you have an existing enterprise application that you want to enable enterprise data protection and encryption on, you just simply add the application's identity to a whitelist, and the operating system will take care of the rest. So now, let's talk about, there's a category of applications that need to span work and personal. And so when we do that, there's cases where you really do need to take Outlook as an example, where you really do legitimately use it for both business and personal uses. And there are probably some enterprise applications that fit into this case. There's a set of APIs that we'll be delivering as part of Windows 10 that will enable you to do that, but you'll need to do some additional work. The final thing I'll say is that as Microsoft, we have a number of offerings in this space, starting with Azure Rights Management Services, the Azure RMS infrastructure, some of the work that Brad Anderson was talking about in the keynote this morning around the container and data loss prevention work on iOS and Android, and then the work that we're doing in Windows 10. The thing that we did starting from the beginning is the teams working together to make sure that we have one common architecture, both for file level encryption, but also for key management. So when you look at these three features, they really do work together harmoniously so that your enterprise data is protected, whether it's on a Windows 10 machine, whether it's being sent out via email protected by Azure RMS, or whether you're moving it to iOS and Android devices using Intune's data loss prevention capability on those devices. So with that, I'd like to bring Yogesh up here and take you through some demos.
Thanks, Jim. So I'm Yogesh Mehta. I'm a senior program manager on the operating system security team. And I'm going to walk through the data protection capabilities in Windows 10 once the machine comes up here. All right, so as you can see here, I have a machine. This is my personal machine. So the idea here is that data protection can be applied not just to the corp-owned devices, but also to the bring your own device or users' personal devices. So I'm signing in. Now, one of the important tenets of data protection, and Jim referred to it while he was talking about it, is making sure that the data stays protected at all times. So it starts with when the data comes down to the device. What are some of the ways data comes to the device? You get email via Outlook, or you sync documents via OneDrive for business, or you just go to the browser and you download a document. So I have here a document that I'm going to save from the browser. It's from my SharePoint. And as soon as the Wi-Fi here gets going, we'll get the document downloaded. Let me just get back to it. Yeah, so I'll save it. So while it's downloading, this is an extension to what Joe and Brad showed earlier, but the idea is as soon as the document is downloaded to the device, so as soon as the data enters the device, the system is smart enough to know that this data is enterprise data because it came from an enterprise network endpoint, and it is now marked as protected to the enterprise. And you can see we have put small UX affordances for the end users. So right here, you can see that this document is encrypted to Microsoft.com. Now, one of the things we observe is data moves around a lot. Your devices today are a cache for the cloud, even on the device or off the device. This data is going to move around, and I'm not going to be working in the downloads folder, so I'm going to move it to my documents folder. And if I go to the documents folder, you'll see the file I just downloaded is still protected right there. One of the things we have added, and this is for the first time in Windows, we support file-level encryption on FAT file system, or basically the removable drives. So here I'm going to take this file, and I'm going to copy it. And I have a removable drive. This is a personal drive. And I'm going to paste it right here. As you can see, protection stayed with the file. The beauty of this is users can bring in their personal drives, whether it's USB drives or SD cards, and enterprise data will stay protected. Their personal stuff is not going to be impacted by the enterprise policy. Why is this important? Think about it. You may have an SD card in your Surface right now. You may have some pictures, and you may want to move those pictures between your Surface and your camera. If you use BitLocker to go on the drive, it's not going to work on the camera because it's protecting the whole volume. It's encrypting the whole volume. With file-level encryption, we can enable those user scenarios while still guaranteeing the protection of your data. So that's great. Data is protected on the device. Data is protected when it leaves the device. What about data when it moves around on the device? So one of the things we noticed is a lot of the data leaks that happen accidentally because users are just using applications that often have no business interacting with that data. So what we have introduced with Windows 10 is an integration of AppLocker, a technology most of you are familiar with, and EFS, the file-level encryption, in a unique manner. What we have done is we have now given you the ability to say which applications can be trusted with enterprise data, and only those applications will have the ability to open your enterprise files. Let me show you how that works. Let's go back to Documents. Now, in this configuration, an application WordPad is not on the enterprise allowed list. So if I go to this file, and I try to open it, select it, open with WordPad, the application is going to get an access denied. The important thing to note here is these policies are only applying to the enterprise data. We want to deliver an integrated experience, so while the data is in containers, the experience is not boxed in. So what that means is, if I have a personal file, which I do here, there's a cookie recipe. If I try to open that with WordPad, it opens fine. So users can continue to use all the applications on their devices for their personal files, and you, as IT administrators, get the ability to say, these are the applications I want to allow for my enterprise data. Let's see some more protections in action. So I have this file here. I'm going to open it. One of the common ways data moves between applications is through copy-paste. You saw a brief glimpse of this in the demo earlier in the keynote, but let me show you it in some more depth. So I have the file here. A lot of people often work and they look at sports scores, or they do other things on the side, like Facebook and Twitter. So I'm just going to play a user scenario here. I'm a big Seahawks fan, so Seahawks had a great draft. I hope I see some Seahawks fans here. I know this is Chicago. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to tweet about it. We had a great draft. We drafted offensive linemen, which we need. Now, while I do that, I'm also working on this document here, which is an enterprise document. So it's very common for me to copy something which I thought was personal because I was going to tweet about it, and while in the course of work, I also ended up copying something that was enterprise. Now, if I go to Twitter and try to paste here, the system is smart enough to know that the data that was on the clipboard is enterprise. What we have done is we have taken the enterprise level protection and integrated it into the system. So not just the file system, even the clipboard is aware that the data that was pasted was enterprise data, and I get a warning. One thing to note here is this warning allows me to override, because the system is configured such that if I have a legitimate business reason to paste this data, I could do it, and that information is going to be audited. It's going to be captured in the audit logs that you can then go back and review. The strings are subject to change. This is still a work in progress. So I don't want to paste enterprise stuff to my Twitter feed, so I'm going to cancel out of it. The thing to note here is that if you have other enterprise documents, so this is another enterprise document that I have been working on, and if I go here and paste here, it just pasted fine. So again, the idea here is your end users are going to have a great experience when they are within this enterprise boundary. If they are copy-pasting between enterprise docs, things work fine. If they try to cross the boundary, depending on the policy you have set, it could be blocked or they could be given a warning, but which they could override. Let's see a few more things in action. So I had my cookie recipe here, and I have my marketing document here. And one of the things that we often see users do is try to drag and drop between documents. So here I take this and I try to drop here. Again, we have not just taken care of clipboard, we have also taken care of drag and drop. The OLE stack that is required to manage this is also now familiar with the fact that the thing that you are trying to drag and drop is enterprise stuff, and it's going to give you a similar experience. Some of the other ways we catch data leaks. What about if I try to share something? So let me go back. I have a picture here. That was a super secret enterprise formula. Now, normally I would take this picture and directly from the Photos app, because we have an integrated experience, I could share this via email or via some other. Sorry, let's go back to it. Yeah, so I could share it via email or some other application. But what if I accidentally hit Facebook? Again, you can see the consistency of experience across all these different user workflows where the user is warned if they accidentally end up sharing corporate information to an endpoint or an application that is not allowed. So this is great. Jim talked about the fact that we are taking care of applications such as Word, which handle work and personal data. But what about your line of business apps? There might be an app out there that was written 10 years ago, and the developer who wrote it is probably no longer around. Or you might have applications that are complex enough that you don't want to go back and change them for the purposes of applying enterprise data protection. We have taken care of that. We support line of business applications that can inherit the enterprise data protection policy without a single line of code being changed. Let me show you how that works. So I have here a line of business app that we use at Microsoft. It's the Microsoft threat modeling tool. I work in the security team. You can see I do a lot of threat models. I certainly don't do threat models for fun. There is no reason I would ever be using this app for a personal use. So one of the first things you see when I launch the app is the user is informed that any files that this app is going to create are going to be encrypted and tagged to the enterprise. This app was not changed. I just pulled it down from the Microsoft server this morning. It's the exact same application. I'm going to go into the app, and I'm going to start creating a threat model. I don't have time right now to build a full threat model, so I'm just going to save this. You saw this in the keynote earlier today, but when you save the file, again, the user has a familiar indicator that tells you that this file is protected to Microsoft.com, and when I save it, it's going to be encrypted. So the new threat model was just saved, again, encrypted to Microsoft.com. The user didn't have to think about applying policy. The developer who wrote the app did not have to worry about it, enlightening their app. Things just work. One of the things I'll show, again, just to give you a glimpse into how we are designing this, is I mentioned auditing. And you saw the actions I took, copy, paste, drag and drop. All of those will be audited in the audit log. One of the other things we support is the ability for the user to decrypt a file. So if accidentally somebody ended up encrypting a personal file, they can go ahead and decrypt it, and you have control if that's something you don't want to allow. But in this case, if I go here, as soon as this opens, you can see when I earlier took this action, it was captured in the event log. And because we are integrating with all of the other solutions that Microsoft has, as Jim referred to, this information will be taken from this machine back to the management server that is managing my device. So what you can see here is as long as the device is enrolled in policy, whether it be with an MDM solution like Intune or with Config Manager, the information is audited, and those audit logs are available on the management side. So just to sort of close this, I'm going to now show you the management experience. And this is the first time anybody is going to see this because this was deployed just last week. So right here, what I have is what the management experience looks like. And I'm just going to quickly talk through some of the things that I've already referred to earlier. But this is in the familiar Intune experience. When you go into configuration policy, you can create a new policy for enterprise data protection. And what you notice here is the first thing is a set of protected applications. This is just a demo configuration, but you can put any applications that are your line of business apps. Those will be applications that we consider unenlightened, no change in the application itself, or they could be productivity apps that are dual purpose and that are included in this list. Next, what we have is the ability for you to control the application management mode. What does this mean? You saw in the demo, I was getting an override prompt. That's because my machine was configured to prompt me for a warning, and I could override it. You could also choose block. What block allows you to do is say the user can never cross the boundary. If they try to, it will be blocked. They will not even have an option. Or you could go with silent. Silent is what we consider as an interesting option, especially as you start trying this out. You could keep the protection on. Data will still flow, but all of the information will be audited. So the user will not see a single pop-up. The information is audited, and based on the audit logs, you can turn the knob over to override or block. And the other thing we have here is the network policy. The network policy is what defines the enterprise network boundary. You saw when I downloaded a document from SharePoint, it was automatically protected. One of the ways the system knows that that's an enterprise network endpoint is because you configured it. You could put something like sharepoint.contoso.com on this list here, and the system is now aware. And the way we have done that is we have integrated with the VPN stack. So again, as Jim said, we are enlightening the OS at the file system, at the networking stack, at the clipboard to be smart about enterprise data. So as you can see, the theme here is bringing together technologies such as encrypting file systems, such as AppLocker, such as the rights management services that enables the key management when data moves out, and the networking and the VPN stack to solve a unique problem. We'll be talking a lot more about these technologies in sessions down the week. I have a session on Thursday. I hope many of you can attend. And I'm just going to close with this. Today is May 4th. It's Star Wars Day. So I'm going to say, may the 4th be with you, and may the protection be with your data at all times. Thank you. Back to you, Jay.
Thanks, Yogesh. So now I want to transition into the third pillar of our Windows 10 security approach, and that's device protection. This is something that's near and dear to my heart as I spent 5 years building security for Xbox. As I said earlier, to protect devices against the modern threat landscape, we really do need hardware and software to work together in concert. And we started this journey in Microsoft on the Windows side with Windows 8, with the introduction of Secure Boot and the integration of TPM and firmware TPM. We're really taking that infrastructure to the next level in context of Win 10 with the introduction of a feature we call Device Guard. Device Guard is really a feature that allows you, the enterprise, to control what software is allowed to execute on the devices that you're responsible for managing. Unlike AppLocker, which really allowed you to control which specific applications were allowed to launch, Device Guard enforces policy at a signature, code signature level. So it allows you to choose a set of trusted signers. These are the people that you trust to sign code for your system, whether that be just you and you're going to go re-sign everything. If in a super high security environment, you might be willing to do something like that. Or you want to trust, say, the business store for Windows 10 to enable us to deliver trusted business applications into your device. You sort of have those bookends, and you can kind of choose whatever policy you want in terms of signing. In addition to that, we're providing a code signing service that will be available to all of you as part of Windows 10 on the Enterprise Edition of Windows that allows you to not have to build your own code signing infrastructure if you don't already have it. We'll provide you with Microsoft has a lot of code signing infrastructure, and so we're allowing enterprise customers to take advantage of that infrastructure with per-tenant keys that will host for you, but allow you to sign your code. So we think that Device Guard really will take us to a significant distance down the path of preventing malware in enterprise scenarios. So if you think about we talked about protecting against phishing attacks. Device Guard really helps with preventing malware getting onto a system. The final thing I'll say about Device Guard is that we talked about this hypervisor virtual secure mode, Hyper-V virtual secure mode that we're introducing. The other thing that we're migrating from the operating system kernel into the secure execution environment in Hyper-V virtual secure mode is our code integrity subsystem. And so you'll be able, on systems running enterprise with Hyper-V, Windows 10 Enterprise with Hyper-V, the actual code integrity enforcement for this Device Guard will actually be done outside of the kernel of the operating system, which dramatically changes the security posture in terms of malware resistance. So those of you who look at these app whitelisting or driver whitelisting other third-party systems that do this, this is a step above what's possible there that's integrated directly below the operating system. So once you have taken this step of locking down the operating system and the applications and drivers that are allowed to run on it, and you feel good about that, the next thing you need to do is be able to know that device, wherever it lives, I talked about how the perimeter is really going away. This device is going to float around and be connected to a lot of different networks and access your enterprise services. It's going to access things like Office 365, and you want those relying parties to be able to reason about your device and whether it's healthy, whether it's properly provisioned for management, whether the antivirus signatures are up to date, et cetera. So in Windows 10, we're delivering for the first time a device health capability that effectively brings device health into our claims-based authorization system in Azure Active Directory as a first-class citizen. And so you'll be able to reason about it as a device claim. Is this device compliant with your enterprise policy? So on the back end with management tools, whether you're using System Center, Intune, or third-party MDM, you'll be able to set your device compliance policy. And then in the device identity in the token for that device, you'll actually be able to see whether or not the device that's coming in right now is compliant with your policy. And all of this is backed by the TPM in hardware on the device, the Windows 10 device. So we think that's a significant step forward in terms of not only protecting the device, but now protecting relying services. So you can say you can't enroll for management unless your device is healthy. You can't connect to a VPN unless your device is healthy. You can't read your email on O365 unless your device is healthy. A lot of us wrote custom code up until this point to do this, and it was all software. This is all based in the operating system tied into hardware. The next device security investment that we're making, we've been providing anti-malware baseline functionality in Windows for a long time, starting with Microsoft Security Essentials. In Windows 8, we integrated that technology directly into the box with Windows Defender. We have an enterprise management capability called System Center Endpoint Protection that layers on top of that. With Windows 10, we're really taking that work to the next level. We have focused in Defender historically on what we consider widely prevalent threats, which tend to be the things that infect most people and most consumers. With Windows 10, we're layering on a bunch of investment to work on less prevalent threats from a malware perspective that tend to impact either enterprises or they tend to impact the third-party malware test results. So you can imagine that if you read test results for these things, a lot of the samples that are used in those test results are actually looking at samples that might actually not be in the wild anymore, but yet they're being used for those tests. And so we're making investments both to improve our take on low prevalence threats versus the sort of high prevalence work that we have historically done as a baseline provider of anti-malware in Windows before. And then finally, as Terry highlighted in the keynote, we believe that one of the most important things we can all do to keep devices secure is to keep them up to date with the latest software and latest security updates. And so with that, we're introducing Windows Update for Business, which is a Microsoft cloud service for managing updates. Obviously, we have hundreds of millions of devices that we update today with Windows Update. We're bringing that capability to enterprises with Windows Update for Business. The key difference is now we're going to give control, unlike consumers where the control is at Microsoft for updating those devices. With enterprises, we understand you need control, and we're going to deliver that control to you as part of Windows Update for Business. We think this is a vast simplification of the way things have to happen for typical information worker systems today. We're going to simplify that, but we want to give you all the control that you need. So as Terry highlighted, we're going to give you the capability to have rings. We use rings today. I'll talk a little bit more about this in detail, but we're going to give you the ability to create rings, not just us create rings. We're going to give you the ability to create maintenance windows so that at quarter close, financial systems don't get updated. We're going to give you peer-to-peer delivery so that we'll take care of getting one replica down over to a low-speed link to a branch office and then having that systems on Windows Update for Business have that thing fan out in the office on the other side so you don't have to worry about branch caching those updates yourself. And then finally, we're going to integrate with existing management tools to give you one pane of glass to manage these Windows Update for Business with your other updates. For example, if you have systems using WSUS or some third-party tool, we're going to give you integration with management tools to have one pane of glass to manage this. But I want to talk quickly because I think the key important thing here to notice, as we think about change, Windows Update for Business really represents a change in the way we do things. We think it's a positive change, but it is a change in the way you have to think about things. And the first thing to think about is that we use this concept of rings at Microsoft today. And how many of you are Windows insiders? Thank you all very much for being Windows insiders. What happens at Microsoft is a developer will check a piece of code in. That thing will then go out in concentric rings within engineering with the local dev team, the operating systems group, the rest of Microsoft. Eventually it gets to the ring that is the the fast ring in the Insiders program, and you get to choose whether you're fast or slow as part of the Windows Insider program. Well, we want to bring that same capability to you in the enterprise so that when updates get to you in Windows Update for Business, you can now say, here's my test ring in my enterprise. I want these people in the IT department to run these updates first, and those machines will get updated. And then you say, well, these departments are going to be the next people that get deployed. And then finally, the whole company gets deployed. And you set you configure those rings yourself. You can have as many as you want, and you can define the timeline when they roll out. And then separate from that, you'll also be able to, as I said, create maintenance windows for machines, even independent of Ring, that will allow you to say, like, again, the financial systems don't get updated the last week of the quarter. So we talked. The other third pillar beyond security was innovative devices for your business. And there's two key things I want to hit here as I talk about this. One of the biggest bets we made in the context of Windows 10 was building one converged platform, which is that we have a platform that spans Internet of Things, Raspberry Pi, if you looked at some of the work that was demoed at Build last week, all the way up to Surface Hub. And it's a single app platform. It's a single security model. It's a single management system that spans all of these things. But we're also introducing new device categories. And as Satya said in the keynote this morning, things like Surface Hub and HoloLens, where we're really defining new categories. And the power of the Universal Windows platform, we think, is immense. The call to action I would give you on this is, please take a look at this for enterprise applications. We think one of the differentiators for Windows is that you can build a single line of business application for the phone, for the tablet, for the PC, for the large screen device in your conference room that is the same application, the same code, and you can apply all of the developer understanding you have from building .NET apps for a long time to building that universal Windows application. Windows also works great on existing devices. We've spent a lot of time talking about upgrades, and we're upgrading users for Windows 7. I'll talk about a little bit more of this in the deployment context, but we have built Windows 10 to work great on existing devices, existing hardware. So our final pillar is manage for continuous innovation. And as I said at the beginning, our world is just accelerating, and the pace of change is accelerating, and we need technology to enable us to manage all that change at a faster pace. The first thing we need is the ability to simplify the way we deploy things. And so with Windows 10, we're delivering a host of new deployment options that didn't exist prior to Windows 10. Traditionally, the IT's answer to deploying a product like Windows is we're going to wipe and reload all the machines once we've tested our image. We've built images for all the different OEM SKUs that we have in our enterprise, and now I'm going to have to take department by department and roll those things out, flatten those machines. And when the user comes back, the device doesn't look like the same device because it's a new device. It's been flattened, and the data may be resynced to that machine, but the apps don't look the same. The custom personalizations and stuff aren't the same. So yes, we will continue to support this capability, but we think there's a better way. So with Windows 10, we're going to enable in-place upgrade. And you can do, with management tools, we're going to allow you from Windows 7 and above to deploy in-place upgrades to your install base. We think this will accelerate your ability to get to Windows 10, and we will dramatically simplify and reduce costs for you actually upgrading, because your apps will move forward. It's our job to make sure that those apps are compatible, and we're doing a ton of work around application compatibility. It's very data-driven in Windows 10 to make sure that your apps stay compatible. But in-place upgrade is going to leave the user with a familiar experience with the new Windows shell experience and applications, but their data and their settings and everything and personalizations will move forward as part of that upgrade. The final thing that you need to think about when you're talking about deployment is new device deployment. Today, many of you probably work with OEMs or directly to yourself, build custom images, and when you get a new device, or you flatten it and re-image it with your enterprise image, or you work with an OEM partner to have that image put on the machine before it's shipped to the user in your enterprise. With Windows 10, we're trying to simplify that. We're delivering a dynamic provisioning capability that allows you to simply create a configuration file with an editor that says, here are all the things I would do in my custom OS image that I would build as an enterprise. It basically creates an XML file that then we have an engine that would, think of it as a from anywhere to anywhere configuration engine that will configure the plain vanilla OS image to whatever configuration you as an enterprise would like to have for your particular system. So now you can take a plain vanilla image machine, ship it somewhere, and at the time the user signs in, this configuration provisioning package is downloaded to that machine, and it's hydrated to be compliant with your policy, have all the settings that you want, and whatever customizations that you want for that user, perhaps if they're whatever group they're in. It simplifies you not having to manage images for all the individual devices that you might have in your enterprise anymore. You just need to manage the policy that you want to put, the configuration that you want to put on those particular devices. So the per SKU differences in your images kind of go away at this point, and the OEM can manage this for you. So the key point on this slide is that while we're building a lot of new stuff in the context of Windows 10, what we're talking about is incremental. We're going to continue to support the things you know and love. Think identity, Active Directory. Many of you are on-prem Active Directory users today. Azure Active Directory, a lot of the functionality we're adding is new in Azure Active Directory, but we're going to continue to support that functionality going forward. The same thing applies to management. Our going forward approach is to simplify management and deploy MDM more broadly with things like enabling MDM management of desktop systems. That said, we love System Center, and we will continue as Windows to support group policy and all of the infrastructure investments that you've made in System Center. Same thing with updates. While we're introducing Windows Update for Business, we're going to continue to support Windows Server Update services and Intune, as well as third-party tools for doing updates. So what we really want to do is give you control and choice as part of deploying Windows 10, but we want to help you with new technologies and new techniques that make this simpler. So with that, I'd like to bring Janani up here to talk to you about some of the new domain join and provisioning functionality we're building. Janani?
Thank you, Jim. Hello, everyone. I'm Janani Vasudevan. I'm a program manager on the enterprise and security team at Microsoft. Some of you here may have been in a position where you received a call from one of your forgetful employees like me saying that they lost their laptop, they left it in their cab, and they need one that's customized for them, shipped to them immediately because they have a demo next day. Luckily for me, there are a lot of computer shops here in Chicago, so I was able to get a brand new Lenovo Yoga, but I need to customize that device to be my work device now. Or think of a case when you have a new employee that's joining your organization, and you need to customize the device with all of the settings that they need to be productive and secure so they can be productive from day one. Windows 10 provides a lot of different options for you to seamlessly provision these devices, just like Jim mentioned. Today, I'm going to show you one of those, which is basically using Azure Active Directory. So one of the thing that I'm going to show you right now is going through the first run experience on my brand new laptop that I have here. So I haven't set it up yet, but I'm going to go through the setup and join my device to Azure Active Directory using my work account, which is the Azure Active Directory account. When I'm on the first run experience screen, which I'll show you in a moment, you will see two different options that I have. One of it is the option for me to join Azure Active Directory, or the second one is going to be for me to join or add a local account and then join the legacy domain so that I can actually join the Active Directory domain. And what I would choose, and looks like the internet is, you guys are all using up the internet, so I have not been able to really, it's still on just a moment for so long, so I'm going to have to skip that part, but I can tell you what I would have shown you. And then I'll skip over to the other device that I have already provisioned because I expected this. So what would happen is I choose the option to join Azure Active Directory. And why do I choose that option? Because I do not have corporate access here. I cannot go down the option of joining my classic domain. So I enter my work ID credential, which is my Azure Active Directory credentials, hit on continue, and then it's going to do the magic. So what happens really at this point of time is my device is registered with AAD, and the device is joined to the Azure Active Directory domain. At the same time, there is also one more thing that's happening. I'm going to hold your suspense for a while before I show that. So this is the device that, imagine, went through that Azure Active Directory domain process, and it's actually waiting for me to log on. The first thing that I want you to notice is that my work account picture, the profile picture, has roamed along with my account. So it was associated with my Azure Active Directory account. And so my brand new laptop here is now my device. So I'm going to log on to this device. And I see that my favorite wallpaper has also roamed to the device. But not just that. The one more thing that I was mentioning, my device is also now automatically enrolled with my company's MDM server. So all I had to do was enter my Azure Active Directory account and join my device to Azure Active Directory, but behind the scenes, the device also got automatically enrolled to my MDM server. Let me quickly show you that. So here you go. So the device was enrolled with my MDM server. So the admin can now push down any security policies or settings or VPN profiles directly just when I join Azure Active Directory. You can see that there is one security policy that my admin has configured here, which is to prevent me from meddling with these Defender settings. They don't want me to unintentionally turn off real-time protection because that would put my device at risk. I also noticed that I have a VPN connection configured for me. So what I can really do on this brand new laptop, which was completely new 5 minutes back, is that I can connect back to corporate network using this VPN connection. This is really powerful. And I also see that there are line of business applications that my admin has configured for me. So the one thing that you can do with this is that you can make sure that your admin just joins Azure Active Directory, and all of the things that you can configure over the MDM channel, be it enterprise data protection policies, or Microsoft Passport policies, or store applications, all of this can be configured through the MDM channel. The other thing is that if I actually got a device which was Windows Pro SKU, the admin could also remotely upgrade me to a Windows Enterprise SKU using MDM. So we heard in Brad's keynote today that there are a lot of expanded mobile device management capabilities that we are adding to Windows 10. If you would like to know more about that, there are a lot of sessions that we have the coming week. And in particular, I have a session on Thursday, and I would love to see you all there. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Janani. So the other thing, we introduced the Windows Store in Windows 8, and one of the key pieces of feedback we got from enterprises was that they wanted a store that worked for enterprises. In Windows 8, the Windows Store really worked with Microsoft Account, therefore it was a consumer identity, and on top of that, it didn't give you opportunities to distribute a line of business applications. So we've heard that feedback, and in the context of Windows 10, we're delivering a store that's open for business. So with part of that, I'd like to introduce Ford, who will come up here and tell you more about this.
Thank you, Jim. Ooh. So my name's Ford McKinstry. I work on the Business Marketplace and Services team. I'm really happy to be here with you all today and talk to you about this new storefront that we're opening in the Windows 10 timeframe. We're working aggressively towards making this available to you all, so I'm happy to say this is the first time we've really demoed to any sizable audience this working, so we hope you're excited about it. Many businesses have been talking to us about using the Microsoft App Store, the Windows App Store for some time, but they have challenges using it today. Some of the challenges they have include the fact that they want to log in with their work credentials in order to get content. They also want to be able to own the content that they acquire themselves, and they want to be able to manage it. They also want to be able to acquire and deploy that content at scale, not as individual items. We've taken this feedback, and that's exactly what we built for you, a Windows Store for business. There's two things I want you to remember from what we're talking about here today. One is that the store is new, and that it allows you to acquire content in volume for Windows 10 in volume. And two is that you can distribute and manage that content at scale using tools that are familiar to you. So let's go ahead and switch over. So the first thing you'll see here is you'll say, that's different. I don't use Azure Active Directory to log into the store. I use my MSA today. Well, with the Business Store in Windows 10, you use Azure Active Directory, and you log in using your corporate credentials. In this case, this administrator has already been to the store, and they've configured the store for their business. At this point, they're just logging in. And it's what we're going to do today is we're going to acquire some content from the business store, and then we're going to use management tools that we've already provisioned to deploy that application that we're going to acquire now to a Windows 10 device. So let's go ahead and do that. Before I go through, I'll note that this experience that you're looking at here, we've built it so that it'll be familiar to the user, but we've clearly tailored it for business use. We'll continue to evolve that based on feedback from you all over time. Here you'll see that, again, what we call the product details page is a familiar experience, but there's some customizations here as well. One of the things that you see in this radio button selection is that there's a new type of licensing that we're supporting. We call it offline licensing, and it's what we're enabling here based on feedback from you all, is the ability to acquire content from the store and put it on a device that cannot talk to the internet directly. So now you're able to get content from the store and use it in these heterogeneous and potentially restricted environments that you need to in your businesses, and deal with the situation where the device can't talk to the internet, or in this case, more specifically, the store services in order to acquire content or to acquire licenses. So let's go ahead and click through. The next thing that you'll see is that you get a relatively straightforward experience to acknowledge that you're acquiring content. And in this case, like I mentioned, my administrator has already configured the management tools for their organization. So all they have to do is confirm the acquisition. And that content is going to be brought into the inventory of your organization. You see it there listed at the top. And it'll be available in your management tool, which we're going to look at next, in order to distribute. So I'm just going to do a quick tour through this experience today. This is the inventory view. It does show you the content that your organization has acquired and allows you to manage it over time. I'm not going to dwell on that today. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to move forward to looking at the management tool. So, in this case, you're looking at System Center Configuration Manager. However, my team is actively working with a number of management tool vendors in order to have them integrate with our business store services. And it's what that enables is the management tool table to sync down the acquisitions that you make and list them here as an application that's available to distribute in the organization. This is our way of hopefully integrating smooth and seamlessly into both the tools and the workflows that your businesses use today. So here are the applications that you saw in inventory in the last screen inside the business store. In this case, PowerPoint was the application that we acquired. And you can see here, might be off the bottom of the screen. There are no deployments currently scheduled for this application. So let's go through what is a familiar to System Center users experience here of selecting, creating a deployment for this application. Just takes 2 clicks, 2 selections. We'll make it a required deployment. The rest of this is all standard System Center deployment. Here it goes through creating the deployment. It looks at the selections I made. You can see that was successful. And then it added right here this deployment that is now scheduled. So we'll go ahead and switch over to a Windows 10 client. Here we are. Let's see. And the first thing I'll show you is here on the Start menu, PowerPoint is not installed. It's going to pop up here after the installation completes. And it's what we have here is System Center Configuration Manager's agent on the Windows 10 device is polling, just like it normally would, for any updates that might be occurring in System Center that it's going to pull down. While that's occurring, I'm going to point out something that I went through. You can see there the installation is now in progress. While it's installing, I'll point out that when we were looking at the inventory, both in the business store as well as in the management tool, you saw an application that I listed in there twice. It was the same line of business or custom line of business application that Joe demonstrated in the keynote earlier today. And effectively, is what we're doing here with the Business Store offering is supporting the capability for your organization to take their own custom application and put it into the store through the Dev Center, submitting it just like they would any other application that would go into the store. However, using the new capabilities that we're providing in the Dev Center to isolate that application to just your organization. That allows you to use the store infrastructure and services and deployment model that we're looking at here today in order to accommodate the custom applications that you need for your business. So without further ado, clicking on Start menu again, you see the PowerPoint application was added, and there it is running. So I would note that this is the first time we've demonstrated this flow, but in particular, this is a new licensing type of offline licensing that is installing onto Windows 10 using System Center. And it's the first time we've demonstrated it to you all. I hope you're all interested, and if you want to learn more, we have sessions throughout the week. And we hope you'll come join us and learn a bit more about what we're building here. Thank you.
Thanks, Ford. So the last thing I'd like to talk to you about today is this tension that we have between agility and control. We've talked about the evolution and things moving faster and faster. You know, all of us want greater agility to be able to respond to change, but the challenge is there's this tension that exists with that and the control we need to meet the core requirements that are put on us as IT professionals to manage our organization's IT infrastructure. So in the context of Windows 10, what we're calling Windows as a Service, the model that we're evangelizing is to start thinking about your user base in groups, and that is you have a set. You know, today in Windows we have a large base of users that are in the consumer space, and obviously in the enterprise space there are a lot of special systems, you know, industrial control systems, things that really don't need to change it for a long time. But the reality is that there's this middle class of users, which are business users, information workers, that really do want to see the pace of innovation. They want the new features. They want to be able to take advantage of the latest innovation and technology, and we want to partner with you all to make that possible. And so with that, we're releasing a sort of a range of deployment options. You know, we have Windows Update today. We expect that to be used for consumer devices and BYOD devices, as well as probably in certain cases test machines. You know, today we introduced Windows Update for Business. This is the core functionality that we really hope that over time will become the way that vast majority of information worker systems actually get updated. And so, as we've said over and over again, you know, the new process for us to engineer products at Microsoft, we really want your feedback, and the same applies to Windows Update for Business. So as we add controls to give you the ability to successfully use Windows Update for Business, we really want to hear from you about whether the controls we're giving are the right controls, whether the experience for those controls is the right thing. And then finally, we're going to continue to support Windows Server Update Services, the thing you know and probably a large number of you already use to manage updates in your enterprise. So I'd like to close with saying that, you know, asking all of you to get ready for Windows 10. You know, please, if you aren't already, you weren't one of the people who raised your hands, join the Insider program, kick the tires, take a look at all these new features. Many of these things are already in the builds, and they continually improve based on your feedback on a very regular basis. The cadence of new builds is getting faster and faster. Again, we love your feedback. Take a look at Windows Update for Business. Give us your feedback on Windows Update for Business. Isn't it going to really work for you? If it's not, we want to hear from you. And then finally, please start building your deployment plan. Thank you very much for your time, and enjoy the rest of Ignite.